everybody, welcome to the second part of 0 Point Reviews this week. We're doing things a little bit differently because Jeff and I can't be in the same room together, the same Zoom meeting room together at the same time this week. We decided to do our reviews a little bit differently. Instead of talking to each other, we're going to talk to you. So I hope you guys dug this as much as I did because we're going to have a nice little conversation about it. By now you probably should have already watched Jeff's video so you knew what to expect going in. He did a pretty good job of not spoiling anything other than saying this is a black and white film. This is kind of what you were going to want to expect, and to go ahead and expect me to make a whole bunch of spoilers. I aim to please. So, Werewolf by Night. Wow. I'm going to go out there and say, what the hell did I just see? Like, this is the best thing of Phase 4 that I've seen so far. Next to, like, WandaVision, this is right up there. This is everything that we've been talking about with She-Hulk, what She-Hulk is, compounded with everything that She-Hulk isn't. We've been talking a lot about how She-Hulk has a lot of filler for a short series. Irrelevant filler is not necessary in a short series. So you have something that's about 3 hours long there, whereas you could condense it into a story like this, it's only 55 minutes. Is that a gripe? Yeah, 55 minutes was a bit short for me because I was enjoying the movie so much. But like Jeff said, it got straight to the point and introduced you to the 5 hunters. It explained the exposition that these people were all strangers, that they had all gathered for the first time and met each other for the first time at this will reading, for lack of a better term. It's like a competition for an entity called the Bloodstone, or an object called the Bloodstone, which is to monsters more or less as what the Infinity Stone is to the Cosmos and Thanos. It explains basically that it has the power to repel beasts and monsters and kind of break their rules. It weakens them, hurts them, all sorts of neat shit. And the gentleman, and I use that term loosely, that owned the Bloodstone, Ulysses Bloodstone himself, finally passed away after generations and generations of long life. And his legacy was supposed to live on through his daughter, Elsa. However, she'd been missing from the family, estranged for 20 years or so. So where we pick up is almost reminiscent of the House on Haunted Hill, where all these strangers are converging on this beautiful house for the first time. And you go down this hall with Jack Russell, the main character, the werewolf. Told you there's going to be spoilers. You go down this beautiful hall, and it's showing you all these elegant things, even though it's in black and white. It's stunningly beautiful. And then once you get into the main hall room that he's in, it shows you the ceiling. Like, you don't typically see that in films and sets because there's no ceiling half the time. And then it does this wonderful 360, so it looks like there was never anything behind him. It's a wonderful, wonderful shot. And that basically tells you cinematically like what you're going to be in for the rest of the film. So it was a good intro, and it stuck to that for the whole 55 minutes. It didn't have anything unnecessary. It didn't have any unnecessary love stories, not a whole lot of backstory itself for each of the hunters, just that they were hunters. They were the best in their field from scattered across the world. My favorite, of course, and it's biased, is Kirk Thatcher. He kind of made this movie in a way with the hunters. Like, this is one of those roles that he himself was kind of just born to play. Like, you could tell he was loving it every single second. He looked fantastic, and he was a gentleman when you meet him. And I believe Mr. Thatcher truly is a gentleman in real life. I've only met him virtually online, but that's a different story altogether. But yeah, so he's the nicest of the nice and jovial, talking to all these people. And suddenly this woman in mourning shows up, and what's her name? Veruza? Kind of sounds like Veruca. Anyway, one of those things on your foot. That is Bloodstone's widow. Not the mother of Elsa, but the housekeeper, basically, that kind of moved on up. She was very devoted to him. And the very vibe that you get off this woman, Veruza, is Frau Verbissina. Yeah, like, oh, wait, edit that. Frau for business. No dice! The vibe you get from her is very much Frau Blucher. It's fantastic. So, anyway, that's not going to get edited out. I'm just going to have this awkward pause in there for you. Yeah, so anyway, she's very much like Frau Blucher. Sorry. Very devoted to Ulysses Bloodstone. And as she's getting ready to read this will, she's explaining that because he couldn't be there in person, he arranged something to be able to be there in spirit. Well, their manservant, which is very much like an Igor type character, almost hunched over, but without being ableist, he has this great big like crank, and he sticks it into the side of this coffin, and he looks like riffraff just going to town on this thing, cranking it and winding it, and he's got this excited look on his face. And basically what it's doing is it's winding up this clockwork casket, and it opens up, and there's the animatronic corpse of this old monster hunter who's explaining there's going to be a competition to earn the Bloodstone, for lack of a better term. And everyone's pissed off because they've earned their right as hunters to get the Bloodstone, to be involved with this hunt. And Bloodstone's daughter didn't ever want it. She just happened to show up. Well, because the stepmom wants her to die, anyway, she's always calling her the dad's greatest disappointment. Clearly, dad never saw her in that dress. Anywho, basically she allowed her in this tournament, which is kind of like Hunger Games in a way, Running Man in a way. It's very dope, and we'll get into that a bit. Basically what happens is these hunters get put into a large MC Escher's type labyrinth, and there's really no way for them to get out until they're released. It's completely enclosed. And they're told that there is a monster inside like they've never seen before, and that they're going to put the Bloodstone on the creature, which will weaken it, but it will enrage it at the same time. And so they say, now, every hunter for themselves. And basically it's like everyone goes out for themselves, like in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So everyone's kind of doing their own thing, looking around, and it focuses mainly on Jack Russell. But then it shows other hunters going after Elsa, specifically Kirk, who's got this great big battle axe. And what they mean by every hunter for themselves is you need to kill the competition in order to make sure you get the monster. And so, yeah, Kirk, for being the jovial, happy guy that he was, just instantly goes rage, total business in trying to kill Elsa and everyone else he comes into contact with to make sure that he gets to kill the beast. Now, because we're watching Werewolf by Night, you are waiting to see this werewolf. You hear all these weird noises throughout the shrubberies and whatnot. And you follow Jack through everything, and he meets Elsa, and he basically tries to tell her, let's just pretend we didn't see one another. You go this way, and I'm going to go that way. He had no desire to fight with her, and she had no desire to fight with him. That's where Kirk comes in and starts making a fight for everybody. So while Kirk and Elsa are fighting one another, Jack Russell goes off, and he finds the beast. The beast was not a werewolf. The beast was, if you haven't heard already, Man-Thing. And I got so excited because, God, I haven't seen Man-Thing since that movie that he had his own movie. Oh, gosh, maybe 10, 15 years ago or so. And it was actually much better than you would give it credit for. Like, it looks like something that maybe the Asylum did, but it's infinitely better than that. Because Man-Thing doesn't talk, it's about a completely different story, a crime story. And Man-Thing is this supernatural force in the background that finally comes out at the end and like levels all the bad guys at once. It's very dope. So to see Man-Thing not practical affected as he was 10, 15 years ago, but done in full CGI glory was just dope as shit. He looked beautiful. And if you haven't seen Man-Thing before, if you're not familiar with your 1970s horror comics, look up Man-Thing on Google. He looks like Swamp Thing. He's this great big hulking creature with like 3 tentacles for like a face, a mustache almost. And he's got bright glowing red eyes. And he can sear the soul of evildoers and shit like that. And he's this wicked creature. But he's not a bad creature. He's not a monster. One of the things that this movie does to keep up in tropes of more Frankenstein type stories is it shows that the men, the humans, are the true monsters in this. Jack Russell, of course, is the werewolf. He's there to get Man-Thing free. They've got the Bloodstone on Man-Thing, trying to weaken him, to kill him, just to hunt for sport. And he's Jack's friend. Jack even tells Elsa, as he's saying, please go help him. She says, well, what do I say to him? And he says, well, say something nice about him. His name's Ted. And you're like, wow, Man-Thing's name is Ted. And so when she goes off to find him, Kirk finds her first, and he's going to swing at her. Man-Thing comes out of nowhere and grabs Mr. Thatcher by the head and sears his head just with his hand, like instantly bursts into flame. And it shows it. It's glorious. For a Marvel film, this is pretty scary and gross. Like, it's not gory, but it's heavily implied. This uses old-fashioned tropes of horror. Like, they don't show you everything. They let suspense and anxiety make you see the horror within your head because, of course, your imagination is going to be worse than anything that camera is going to show you. And they did that perfectly with this. It was everything that you'd expect from a 1930s film done today. It was done very respectfully as an homage to those tropes. Let's see, what else? We went over the credits. The credits again, 1930s style. Loved it a lot. Another thing that this did to work on the tropes of terror is the music that you would hear during the hunt. Like there's this phonograph out just randomly playing. And it's this very soothing song. And because it's on a phonograph, it's not clear. It's staticky and hazy. And that calm and that ease works against you. That's what helps build the suspense. Like it's trying to soothe you, but you know in the back of your head your fight or flight reaction is telling you it's not safe, it's not safe. Even waiting for a jump scare. And it worked marvelously, absolutely marvelously, to the point where you would see that phonograph again later on. But moving along the plot, Ted gets freed by Elsa and Jack. So basically that was half of the movie, is freeing Man-Thing, making sure he's safe. After that is trying to get Jack and Elsa away from the rest of the hunters, specifically Veruza, Frau Blucher, who's a complete fanatic. For the Bloodstone, for hunting, for Ulysses Bloodstone himself. I'm going to go out there a little bit, and I don't know what you guys thought, but for me personally, she was kind of a bitch. Little loop-de-loo, if you will. And I know Ulysses was a bit kind of like the Crypt Keeper, and that was funny, but she was very scary. Very, very scary. Almost like his witch. She was a witch for him. It was just, she was very good at the horrible character that she played. So again, wanting to kill Elsa, she locks her in a cage with Jack. And the Bloodstone has the ability to turn Jack into a werewolf without the full moon. So that all ends up happening, and Veruza is so proud of herself that she made the Bloodstone work. And she's going up to look at Jack in his transformed form, And the first thing you see of him is his arm reach out and grab her arm and pull her in and start like gnawing. You hear tearing. So you don't know if he's like biting her arm off at the socket, if he's pulling it off at the socket. You don't know, but you see her face in that tear and a little bit of arterial spray. And that's when things get fun. You see, we're not back in ancient times or 1930s times. We are in modern day. It's just filmed in black and white. Here comes these like advanced elite troopers with these long cattle prods like you'd see in Jurassic Park, trying to subdue the werewolf and Elsa at the same time. So Elsa's trying to have to protect herself and go on faith that Jack is not going to harm her. When he realized that he was in fact going to be turned into a werewolf against his will, or against the full moon by the bloodstone, he has this moment of like sniffing her. Like he like gets right up on her like and starts giving her what I call snuffles. Like I do that to my kids all the time, like right in the neck. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And he says, I'm going to try to remember you." And that's really smart. It was a missed opportunity to smell her butt. It really was. Like, I think that just would have been really funny if we would have been, "Oh, it is you. Sorry about that. My misunderstanding." Did not do that, though. It was a little bit more serious than that. So he goes off on this killing spree on his end, and they show this other, basically like an antithesis shot of the first hallway scene, where it's opening up into a light area. This hallway is going down into a lit area that's got a closing door ever so slowly, trapping everyone in. So it's like your first person viewing as Jack is maiming and murdering several people going down this hallway. And the lights are flashing, and you can see this white light of freedom ahead of you slowly going down to the point where you know you're not going to get out before that door closes. And as Jack is maiming and murdering and ransacking all these people, there's all sorts of arterial spray flying up over the camera as if it's in your face. And it is just, it is like a 10-point horror review right there. That was just dope for the visual stunning effect of it. It was terrifying. Like, to put yourself in that position, you would be as terrified as Elsa was. And then, of course, you have the moment where, yes, she is going to have to be recognized by him. He's going to have to smell her. And it's a little bit renditions of the Hulk, where he goes nuts and then has to realize that's Natasha. Now, the sun wasn't setting real low. The full moon wasn't getting real high. He, again, smelled her and started figuring that was her, and then took off. Again, it was a missed opportunity for Elsa to just, instead of worriedly hope that he wasn't going to attack her, to like put her hand out and ask who a good boy was. Like, seriously, just ask, "Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?" Yes, Jack's a good boy. Jack's a good boy. Maybe even get behind the ear. Dudes like that even when they're not in wolf form. Try it. So again, we see Jack escape, and you think she's fine. And of course, horror films don't end that way. There's Veruz at the end of the hall with all these guards just waiting to kill Elsa. Before they can, Man-Thing smashes through the ceiling and grabs the old woman and doesn't even question, look, nothing, just fries her right in front of you, and you just see her die screaming in flames. A very fitting end for a horrible character. And then he has this like pantomimed conversation with Elsa asking where Jack is. And you can hear him kind of grunt, "Thank you," when she's like, "He went that way." And so it ends with basically her taking over the family legacy. She has the Bloodstone, which has always been, I'm sorry, I probably should have mentioned it before, a bright, beautiful color of red on a black and white background. And it starts to slowly bleed open. The color starts going through Elsa and the rest of the scene to the sound of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the actual Judy Garland rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And it was so fitting because, of course, that's the song that she sings in sepia color, black and white, and then she opens the door to Oz and she's in color. So that was very metaphoric here, and it worked very well. And then that shifts into that phonograph sound again, where it's kind of echoey, scratchy, tin canny, and you see Jack waking up very similar to the way Bruce Banner would wake up after a Hulk rage. And he's camping basically with Man-Thing. I keep wanting to call him Ted, but it's Man-Thing. Asking how she was. Did they make it? Did they win? How did everything go? Clearly they won because they're there together. And they start laughing at one another. And they're sitting next to each other in the same fashion that you'd see Thor and Hulk sit next to one another. And basically what you find out is Man-Thing was basically saying, it's a good thing I came back to save you. And Jack saying, you're lucky I was there to save you at all. And it ends with these two monsters being the best of friends, and it's a happy ending. The actual monsters, the terrible, tragic creatures, the beasts, were the human beings, and really only one of them survived, and that was Elsa. We don't know why she came back. We don't know why she cared about the Bloodstone. We don't know why the family legacy finally just, like, that was her thing. She kind of started running it the same way that Shang-Chi's sister started running the hand. Or the 10 Rings, I'm sorry. That was Netflix. We don't talk about that no more. So yeah, that was all condensed down into 55 minutes. Nothing excessive. Nothing unnecessary. No kids to appeal to a larger audience. This was a very condensed and concise movie. It knew what it wanted to show you. It knew what it wanted to be, and it knew how long it took to get that done. And it didn't take any extra time to do that. So that's a big A+ for that movie. But again, when you get down to it, for other Disney projects, your average Winnie the Pooh movie is about 75 to 80 minutes long. Let's kind of get the Marvel series up to that level. We know they're expensive. We know they're very grandiose, but we want to see those full-fledged Marvel things too. This, again, the last thing I could say about it is probably, next to WandaVision, the best that Phase 4 has put out so far. And I'm more looking forward to the Monsterverse than I am the multiverse. Much, much more. You don't know at the beginning if you're listening to someone explaining from the Darkhold. You don't know if you're listening to a watcher explain the exposition. This is more interesting to me again, but I'm a big fan of Dracula, the Wolfman, the Frankenstein, the Creature. I love all those 30s and 40s films. So this felt very natural to me. This is something I'd very much hope gets a physical release, but again, praising Mr. Thatcher again, just like the Muppets Haunted Mansion, probably not going to see it. So if you could find this somewhere for yours to keeps, great. But definitely get your subscription to Disney Plus to watch this, because this is one thing that may not be interconnected to the whole grand scheme in the MCU that we talk about. But this is something that's definitely worth watching in the MCU because it's the most quality. It's the most quality. It has the best acting I've seen. It has the most concise story, the best soundtrack to it. Everything. This is just next to Dick Van Dyke consulting on how WandaVision should look. This is the best Phase 4 has done so far. So that's my huge amount of spoilers for you guys. Hopefully, like, I touched everything that you guys liked about it. Hopefully I brought some stuff to your guys' light that you guys may not have known, like the trophy room with all the demons. I didn't actually look up to see which ones those were, but I know they're probably from the comics. One of them kind of looked like Wendigo, which would be really, really neat. Because that would be a second Wolverine reference we've had this week. The other one was yesterday on She-Hulk. So, but yeah, if you've already listened to my spoilers and you haven't seen this, go watch it and come back and watch it again. Otherwise, thank you guys for hanging out with the 0 Point Reviews. Thank you guys for being my talking partner this time around. And we will catch you guys next week.
You check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. We are at sunsandshadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.